From the ruins of the Garlemald Imperial Palace rises the Tower of Babil, a monstrous edifice constructed by Fandaniel and Zenos' enthralled hordes. While its exact purpose has yet to be ascertained, it is here that the would-be orchestrators of the final days await the Warrior of Light, who now spearheads a daring mission to infiltrate the tower and vanquish the Telephoroi once and for all. In the days of Emperor Zande, he named the void gates he used to summon Void Sent Babil, meaning Gateway of the Gods. Considering Fandaniel, or rather Amon, has used the same nomenclature as Zande, we can all but assume what this tower is made for. While half our number distracts the main force of the Telephoroi with a fake assault, the rest of us are infiltrating the palace using an underground train network located in the Enchelidium. We fend off the Telephoroi and their Magitech and use the lift to ascend the tower. Atop the spire lies the Primal summoned by the Garlean's prayers, Anima. Anima is an icon unlike that which we have ever seen before. The siphoned ether from across all of Eorzea gathers at its feet, giving it unimaginable powers. It has the ability to drag us into its own domain below the battlefield. But not even he is able to stand against the might of the Scions, and together we bring Anima low, and finally put Varys to rest. Anima's death reveals a set of doors he was guarding, and entering them shows us Fandaniel and Zenos preparing something. Estinian tries to stop them, but they are protected by a barrier. As Fandaniel presses the final button, a beam of ether pierces the heavens and aims directly for Zodiark's bonds. Kryl appears while being possessed by Hydaelyn, stating that her adversary's bonds won't be so easily broken. The beam continues unabated, and suddenly the bonds begin to shatter, one by one. Zodiark is breaking free. Try as they might, one final bond holds steady, and they are out of ether. As they are out of options, it is time for a change of plans. Instead, they will head to the moon directly and destroy that bond manually. Just as we attempt to give chase, the tower begins to shake violently. Zenos tells us that Anima has given his final order. Should the Empire fall, the world must share her fate, thus pitting tempered and comrade against each other. We are free to give chase, but in doing so, we will abandon those who are in need. Both Zenos and Fandaniel teleport towards the moon, and Hydaelyn uses the last of her strength to shift the flow of ether and send them far away from their intended destination. Now is our chance. We have to take the teleporter and meet with an ally of hers. If we seek him, we can seal Zodiark once more and stop their plans from coming to fruition. The rest of the Scions will stay behind and deal with the Tempered, as we go to the surface of the moon alone, to Mare Lamentorum.
Long, long before Dalamud was forged to imprison an elder Primal, the eldest of them all, savior of the star, was sealed within a moon of his own. Souls sacrificed to grant him life still slumber and dream of the day he and we will be made whole. Here he waits, in this cold, barren place, his cradle and his grave. Silent lamentations and prayers of hope echo soundlessly to a sundered star, adrift and alone.
The moment we set foot upon Mare Lamentorum, we hear the voice of an ancient calling out to us, telling Hydaelyn's champion to join him. We see a nearby echo and assume this was the one who called out to us, but it wasn't. It is a vision of grief wanting to return to life, wishing it could return home. Again the voice rings out to us, telling us not to touch the echoes, instead seek him in the cerulean halls nearby. The cerulean halls are most definitely reminiscent of ancient architecture. The outside looks as if it belonged to Amarot itself. The inside is no different. A vast expansive library with space far too wide for any mortal to fill. Nothing here looks man-made, meaning it was all done with creation magics. Though our ally called for us inside these cerulean halls, he is not at the door to greet us. It is empty, and no sound is heard except for the echo of our own footsteps. Yet, we can sense a being on the roof. When heading there, we see a white-robed ancient known as the Watcher. He apologizes for not greeting us, as he has been preoccupied for quite some time now. Ever since the moon was created by Hydaelyn, he has served as its Watcher. He is responsible for maintaining the bonds which keep Zodiark sealed. Zodiark was sealed at the center of the moon, and even though he was rent asunder 13 times, he regained most of his power with the 7 rejoinings. Yet he remains incomplete, and those who were sacrificed to create him are beyond salvation. Normally his servants didn't attempt to break him free from his bonds until he had enough power restored. But for some reason, Fandaniel has taken it upon himself to destroy 5 of the 6 gargantuan swords which bind him. The Watcher has already restored one of the bonds, but the weakening of Zodiark's seal has caused the echoes of those who were sacrificed to manifest once more. They are impeding his process to restore the seal and labor to oppose his work. They are to be expelled if all life is to persevere. We will aid him, but only if keeping Zodiark imprisoned is the right thing to do. The Watcher has this to say in response. What is right and good? You could ask 1,000 souls and receive 1,000 different answers. He will offer us none. He is the Watcher and the jailer, not the judge. But know this, Hydaelyn commands the forces of stasis, and this moon is a product of this power. So long as Zodiark remains imprisoned in this place, no more sacrifices will be made in his name, nor will the souls of those rendered up in his name fade to oblivion. Now go, meet with the wandering spirits, do what we think is right. It is at the drowning brand that we meet with the spirits. Most are confused about the passage of time, like they have been awoken from a long slumber, unable to believe that so much time has passed since they were sacrificed to Zodiark. They were also happy once, at peace. They helped the star grow with their will and their creations. They were its beating heart, its life, every soul a drop of blood flowing through its veins. To live, to learn, to create, to make better. The star flourished, and so too did they. Do we remember? The spirit disappears, and there are no more echoes nearby. Suddenly, an unusually lustrous dog appears out of thin air and gazes at us with anticipation. It beckons us to follow it. The dog has brought us before the numbing brand. The spirit here laments. They were fulfilled, wanted for naught, mourned for naught. So why? Why did it have to end? The final days taught them to fear death forced upon them, the injustice of duties and dreams left unfulfilled, the grief of unexpected partings, swift as darkness, cold as ash. Such tragedy, yet no catharsis. Such truth, yet no consolation. The whispers die and the spirit fades. No more spirits linger around the numbing brand. Once again we followed the dog to the crushing brand. The spirit here is anguished. Their perfection came crumbling down. Such overwhelming despair. In that moment they knew the end was nigh. The faintest glimmer of hope remained. They gave their lives so that others may live. They gave themselves to Zodiark. Zodiark, our Lord and Savior, to forge our world anew, to live and love again, become one with the star, fill the earth and heaven with life, birth paradise where fear is a distant memory. The echoes of the damned surround us with such number that we're almost forced to draw our blade. That is, until a familiar sounding echo asks the spirits to kindly step aside. This causes all other spirits to disappear, leaving this soul spirit alone with us. The reason he wanted to speak to us is because our soul has the unmistakable color of a Zem. This is our good friend Hydaelyn, but not the same one we met in Amarot, because that was just a shade Emmet Selk created of his friend. This is the real Hydaelyn, who sacrificed himself to Zodiark and has forever been trapped here on the moon. They remember every detail which led to their purgatory, the plan to create Zodiark, the plots for their resurrection, Hydaelyn's inevitable intervention, Zodiark, and the star's final fate. From then on, they drifted in a waking dream, their minds steeped in fog, until we arrived. He doesn't know what we want to do with Zodiark, but he shall place his trust in us, just as Emmett Selk did. So we should believe in ourselves, and all will be well. Our conversation ends to the sound of a brand being destroyed by Fandaniel and Zenos. Hydaelyn apologizes for keeping us away from our duty, and in return, he'll make sure that no shades will bar our path any longer, allowing us to head to the final brand directly, and defend it against the two of them. Even though we were given ample opportunity to head to the brand unimpeded, that did not matter. Zenos makes quick work of the final brand, and with it gone, Zodiark is free. Free, but looking for guidance. Though he was the great being who forestalled the final days, it was not without Elidibus guiding him as his heart. As Elidibus is no more, Zodiark is left wanting. Zenos wants for nothing more than us to devour this god and become stronger for our final battle to come. But we're in mind to finish this now. This time, however, it is instead Fandaniel who halts our fight. He wishes to say his piece.
Do you remember when I told you that I wanted to die and take everyone with me? I meant it.
Fandaniel falls towards the chasm that lies at the center of the moon and takes the place that Elidibus once sat, as Zodiark's heart. From the chasm, a beam of light blinds our vision, and we awaken in a darkened space and are slowly surrounded by the masks of fallen ancients. We are the savior. We are the guardian, the keeper of natural order. We are the martyr, the bestower of new beginnings. We are...
Such lofty aspirations! And what sweet irony that the world's saviors will become the agents of its destruction!
It cannot end this way. We must return and be made whole. We are the will of the star, now and forever, for the greater good, for the sake of the world.
Wrong, 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 wrong! Lies and delusion! The dead have no power over me. You will be silent. Silent as the grave!
No more. We beg of you. The star must endure. The voices of the fallen fall silent. They gave their lives for the betterment of the star, so that the star they cherished could live another day. Now Fandaniel wishes to puppeteer their cherished god and ignore the wishes of those sacrificed. Instead of saving the world, he will use them to end it. We grab the soul stone of Azem tightly.
Believe and walk in faith. Let the light of your soul shine for all to see. Not quite the outcome you'd imagined, but a fitting one nonetheless. Don't you think so, Hades?
We channel the magics which reside within the soulstone of Azem, allowing us to cleanse the darkness which surrounds us, allowing the light of our soul to shine for all to see. With our vision now clear, we come face to face with Zodiark. We can see remnants of what once was. He is missing limbs and parts of his body. If further rejoinings had occurred, he would have been completely restored. Though he is incomplete, the descriptions we have received from Emmett and Hydaelyn prove true. This is a god, a primordial being created with magics beyond our comprehension, and suffused with ether which far outclass any which exists today. Fandaniel is in absolute control of this boundless vessel. He had intended to pit his fractured divinity against Zenos, but here we stand a far more tempting offer. We have always been the greatest obstacle to his ambition, but we shall trouble him no longer. Zodiark's shackles have finally been broken, bringing his millennia-long imprisonment to an end. This premature awakening is the work of Fandaniel, who has cast aside his duty as an Ascian to turn the god of darkness against the very star he was created to protect. With Zodiark's unfathomable power at his disposal, Fandaniel has selected his first victim, the Warrior of Light, who has ever been a thorn in the Ascian's side. Our light shines like a beacon and gathers 7 warriors who have the will to do battle against this foe and save the world. The strength of a primordial being cannot be compared to anything we have faced thus. Even Hades was mighty, but this is on another scale. The power he commands outrivals anything we have seen in all of our journey. All of existence bends to his will. But even this is not enough. Our light shines brightly and inspires others to battle past their limits. With our wills together, we can overcome such a foe as this. In the end, Zodiark is bested. He is incomplete and insufficient to beat the likes of us. The Watcher tells us to leave the chasm with the teleporter nearby. He is ready to place a seal upon Zodiark once more, and all will be right. Fandaniel's plan has come to an end. He can no longer cause the final days by using his might, but he will instead be sealed here on the moon with him. Or would have. His plans have only just begun, and we have played our role to perfection, sealing his victory. He didn't intend to use Zodiark's might, but to have us slay the god. He uses his hand to pierce his chest and grab hold of his heart. All he has ever wanted since the beginning was for us to kill Zodiark. It didn't matter how the plan reached his desired effect. All that matters is that the plan has been executed. In the end, he took matters into his own hands, considering the Watcher was about to seal him. But there is something satisfying about finishing one's own work. His only regret is that we will live to tell the tale. But even so, his heart's desires have been fulfilled.
Let your murder mark the beginning of the end. The coming of the final days!
How quickly strength fades, and blood cools. Old familiar sensations. So many lives, so many deaths. No different this. I close my eyes and slip into the dreamless slumber. A tired song and dance. Routine. Always I wake. But not this time. Nothing left unsaid. Nothing left undone. Inherit my hell. I intone with glee. The man I was would weep for what I have become. The all-consuming contempt. But I've the wisdom of 10 millennia to justify my answer to the question. No value in their existence. Not a whit. For all that I looked. None that I did see. A final chance, then, for Hydaelyn and her faithful. In Cataclysm, prove me wrong. I snare. All shall return to nothingness. As was your will, Emperor Sunday. I, the star, and every living being, consigned to your oblivion.
A light blinds our vision as Zodiark fades from existence. We awaken above the chasm once more. Suddenly, we hear an unknown voice. It says, "Ah, at last, the star, our home, is slowly devoured by rot in front of our very eyes." The Watcher tells us to take deep breaths. It was nothing but a vision. But it is a vision of the horrors to come, granted to us by our Echo. With him no longer presiding over the laws of nature, life itself has begun to unravel. The death of Zodiark hearkens the final days. Zenos leaps out of the chasm and prepares to attack us. Instead, he decides that there will be no thrill if we were to draw blades today, because our gaze has already been drawn towards the ravenous beasts which lie at our gates. Zodiark was a lie. He was not enough to instill true despair. That is what he desires. Pure, unadulterated despair. All the Warrior of Light can say in response to this is, hope will win the day. In the end we shall see, and for now he will withdraw. The Watcher requests us to accompany him back to his abode. Our companions arrived on Mare Lamentorum not too long ago, and are awaiting us. There he will tell us of Zodiark and what his end spells for our star. Y'shtola, Thancred, and Urianger were all they could spare from Garlemald. They have saved a great many lives, but others were not so fortunate. The Tempered took to using explosives and rushing headfirst into our allies, killing themselves and many others. The healers are overwhelmed with the amount of injured. This includes Kryl among their number, as after being used as Hydaelyn's vessel, it has left her severely drained of ether. Alphino and Alize have requested to stay behind in Garlemald, and the rest of them have rushed to our aid, even though matters here have already concluded. We keep our companions up to date on what has occurred here on the moon, and they are of course astonished to hear the news that Zodiark, the eldest of Primals, is no more. Now the delicate weave of the star, preserved by his presence, will begin to unravel. The final days. Before the Sundering there was only one star, Aetheris. One day, from within the earth, a terrible cry issued forth, affecting a profound change in all manners of life. They were not exempt. Their creation magics ran rampant, giving shape and form to thoughts of hopelessness and despair. At first the phenomenon was limited to a single region, but it quickly spread and engulfed the entire star. The ancients were never able to deduce its source, but they were able to predict where the next corruption would manifest. This is due to the etheric currents which flow through all of creation. There are currents which course through the lands and sea, that which flow through the air, and those of the celestial, which encompass both the star and the moon. Celestial currents are a knowledge that few scholars knew of even in the time of the ancients. They are like the other currents, but their ethereal distribution is not consistent. The Convocation soon realized that the incidents occurred in regions where the flow was the weakest, a correlation that did not have clear causation. Upon inspection, a stagnancy of ether was observed in the nearby currents, Therefore, they found a way to harness the forces of darkness, of activity, and growth. Thus Zodiark was conceived. It took the power of a god to set right the laws of nature and quicken the flow of ether within the star. With the advent of Zodiark, their end was averted. Hydaelyn was part of a group who opposed Zodiark, but their goal was never to unmake him. They understood that his continued preservation of the natural order was dependent on his very existence. Until they could identify the cause of the final days, he would need to remain, as his departure would set in motion those apocalyptic forces once more. She recognized this, and instead of destroying him, she sundered him and everything else into lesser reflections, so that she could bind him to this place. Hydaelyn never meant to lie to us, but to obfuscate the truth and mislead. Zodiark and Hydaelyn are both constructs of man, approximations of perfection, limited by our own imperfections. He was more powerful than her, as he was born from sacrificing half of Etheirys' population. Thus, she had to commit herself wholly to defeat him, and more effort was required to seal him. Maintaining the brands taxed her greatly. With what power she could spare, she cried out to any and all who might listen, and bestowed her blessing to those that heeded her call. She is a reflection of her creation. They wish to look towards the future, and not linger in the past. This is why she may have chosen to conceal her true history. If we are not able to avert the final days, the source will come to an end. And if the source were to fall, so too will its reflections. The final days spells doom for all worlds. Nothing will remain if we fail. The ground shakes and the Watcher urges us to accompany him on the balcony to see what has just occurred. In the sightline, there is now a new structure appearing. It is another one of Hydaelyn's creations. She knew that she did not have absolute control over him and his faithful, so she created a contingency plan if he were to fall. The moon is not only his prison, but also a vessel capable of bearing the people of Etheirys to safe harbor. In fact, he will take us to meet the pilots now and fulfill his final duty as Watcher in the dark. To reach the structure in the distance, we need to call upon Argos, the lustrous dog we met not too long ago. He is the god of the moon and one of Hydaelyn's most fascinating creations. He can create reflections on a whim, though the one that accompanied us is not a reflection. Neither is the one here now. Normally he doesn't show affinity for anyone, but he seems quite eager to be at our side. He creates reflections for our companions and provides us with transportation to cross the now vacant chasm which lies at the center of the moon. The grandeur of this place is something we couldn't have expected. The doors are gigantic and its halls are expansive. Its scale is reminiscent of Amarot. It is a marvel beyond description, yet it is completely desolate for now. The Watcher did say that the would-be pilots were roused from their slumber the moment Zodiark was destroyed. Suddenly the technology begins beeping and one of the pods open to reveal a rabbit. A humanoid rabbit no taller than a kobold. The moment they awaken, they move towards their designated area and line up in formation. All the rabbits in formation are colored white and wear the same clothes, yet there is a brown-colored rabbit who leads them all. She announces to them all that Zodiark is no more, and now the moon has a new purpose, to bear the people of Etheirys to safety. Their time has finally come. There is much to do before their guests arrive, so don't forget to relay their signal to Etheirys. We know not why Hydaelyn hath chosen these beings to be her crew. Urianger speculates that their endearing forms intend to ease the passengers' hearts. Given the present crisis, she sought to facilitate cooperation between pilot and passenger. It would require a heart as hard as diamonds to raise your voice in anger to beings with such sweetness. Which could be true, but we can never truly understand the workings of a god. These beings are known as Loporites, a name we had read within the archives the Watcher kept over these millennia. We did not expect them to be in such forms, but he bid us to heed their counsel. We assume that the one giving orders to the rest of the Loporrits must be their leader. It doesn't take long to find where she is stationed, thus we can begin our questioning. At first she is startled to see that man has already come to the moon to seek refuge, and finds it quite weird that they decided to send a group of children alone with no caretaker. Instead, she directs us to a giant blue orb in the center of the hall and asks us to meet up with her there. Introductions are in order. Her name is Livingway, and they are Loporrits. They have been created to pilot a ship bearing the people of Etheirys to a new world. She is the one who Hydaelyn charged with the execution of her most vital plans. With Zodiark's destruction, the celestial currents on Etheirys have weakened, meaning that it is inevitable that the planet itself will rot to its very core. Therefore, they will take every living being away from the planet and shepherd them elsewhere. They have been communicating with the surface to find accommodations and such that needed to be created to make travel and resettlement have a higher success rate. But we must have been unaware of such trivialities, because we are children. She keeps calling us children, but we can assure her that everyone here is a full-grown adult. Sure, the Amarot teens could reach heights capable of filling these halls, but the average man has never come close to their predecessors. She frantically flicks through a book which has been given to them from the surface, muttering that it would have been handy for someone to at least mention that every person on Etheirys had been miniaturized. The book is apparently a collection of everything Eorzea. The book has been the basis for their creations thus far. She had all but assumed that the book was fashioned to such a small size to accommodate their small forms. But in reality, this is a normal-sized book. This causes Livingway to have a quick breakdown. She presses a button and contacts Buildingway, telling him to rebuild all their structures to 1/3 their original scale. We have a lot more questions to ask her, which she will answer in due time, but the fact is she doesn't want more complications to arise due to outdated knowledge of the current Etheirys population. Therefore, she wishes to learn more about us. First, she takes us to Cookingway to test their foodstuffs. They have been working hard and studying the nutritional intake every human needs for a balanced diet, and they believe they have created the most perfect cuisine any guest could ask for. They insist that we try their freshly prepared stock, and after all the vaporing he did about his cuisine, we really are expecting something special here. We open their storage crate to find it full of a multicolored assortment of carrots. We grab one at random, and just holding it in our hands makes us question whether or not this is indeed a carrot, and our gut instincts asks us to bring it to Cookingway to make sure it is safe to eat. Cookingway gives us the go-ahead, and with great trepidation we take a bite of this giant golden carrot. We enjoy its crunchy texture. Righteous confidence surges within us, a certainty that we are the center of the universe, that all creation is a story, and we the star, beloved and perfect and special, a god worthy of worship and prayer, or at the very least a second roll should the dice treat us poorly. What we just ate was called a lucky carrot. Its creation was a happy accident, but as the name suggests, it makes you feel like you're blessed with good fortune. They have a carrot for every occasion. But all they have is carrots, nothing else. They are in fact aware that other dishes exist, but they decided that instead of spreading their resources thin and preparing lots of unsatisfying meals, it would be more efficient to produce a single, perfect food. What they don't understand is that man cannot survive on carrots alone. Even if there is a carrot for every occasion, eating carrots every day would drive one mad. Have they tried preparing the carrots in any other way? They've thought about it, but decided that eating them raw was more efficient. Kind of ironic considering his name is Cookingway. They are not their official names, as their names are written in the tongue of the ancients. Instead, they decided it would be easier for the passengers to know which Loporrit specializes in what if they just attached the job that they were designated to their name. Next, we are to sample their clothing options. Again, excitement fills us as we get to witness fabric created by those who wield the self-same power as the ancients. But alas, the clothes they have created are all robes, masks, gloves, the same stuff the ancients would wear. Nobody would wear these clothes in current-day Etheirys. However, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so we regroup with our allies to see their opinion. It is much the same, very tacky, and we all look ridiculous. They knew the people of today didn't wear robes and masks that they prepared, which is why they tried to add some flair depending on what job they took. But they severely underestimated just how diverse we really are when compared to our predecessors. We do acknowledge their effort. Clearly a lot of exertion was spent making sure the people of Aetheris feel at home on the moon. But there are things one cannot learn from tomes alone, and this is one of them. Thancred asks a completely unrelated question. It's about if Hydaelyn had any plan put in place to save the other reflections. She did not. They have only ever been charged with shepherding the people of the Source. They were born of Hydaelyn's love for Aetheris and its people. Surely it's better to spend their efforts saving one planet instead of dividing their forces into 14 and saving them all. If we do not find a way to halt the final days, Reen, Lena, Moren, Seto, Becklug, and many more we can't even begin to name will meet their demise. She has given us a lot to think about, and the Scions will go their separate ways for now. In the corner of our eye we spot a Loporrit fidgeting. He wanted to see the visitors for himself out of curiosity, but now he is overcome with fear. It's clear they've made a mess of things here on the moon, but he still wants us to visit the domiciles with him. He is named Growingway, and he wants us to stand on a pad to be teleported to a residential area. But because it is under reconstruction, it fails and instead teleports us to a random location, which just happened to be next to Urianger and Livingway, who are having a private conversation, which we can eavesdrop in. She wishes to know what Urianger truly feels about the work they have done on the moon. Even though disappointment is written upon his face, he cannot bring himself to belittle the hard work the Loporrits have done in preparation for the final days. This frustrates her and her colleagues, because if they don't know what is wrong, then they cannot fix it. Time is running short, and the final days will wait for no one. If there is work to be done, then they need to do it before the people of Aetheris come piling in. That is why she has a request. For Urianger to work with their collaborators back on Aetheris. He has seen the moon for himself. He could speak of its splendors and learn what they require or relieve any concerns they have. Out of all of us here, he seems to be the only one who isn't entirely unsatisfied with the work they have done. He understands that in the face of great danger, they cannot pursue perfection at the expense of practicality. Difficult choices are often made for the greater good. That is why fate conspires to give him the task of working behind his friend's back once more. Before he can give an answer, he is interrupted by Growingway running up the stairs, apologizing for the malfunction. He did not know that the residential area was under reconstruction, but it won't happen again. It may not seem like they've been planning this for so long, considering so much is wrong, but they have. Each time they've awoken, they've discussed how they'll convince the people of Aetheris to come to the moon. They don't want them to come because no other option remains, and would instead prefer if they came of their own volition. That is why they are striving to make the moon a vibrant place. To that end, he wishes we explore the rest of Bestway boroughs with him. Together we travel eastward towards Greatest Endsvale. It is named that because it is the most beautiful forest you'll ever lay your eyes upon. It's almost expected at this point, but this place is barely a forest. There are no trees nor wildlife present. Everything is mechanical and lacks the beauty of nature, though it is quite beautiful in its own way. Instead of trees, they have opted to use crystalline constructs, and because of their atmosphere purifying technology, it is capable of reproducing air which far surpasses the forests on Aetheris. They have a Loporrit-made waterfall which allows them to gather fresh water every day. That is why it is called Greatest Endsvale. He has always dreamt of walking around the forest with a person from Aetheris, so we indulge him and take a stroll around this place. He begins to tell us of the Loporrits' past. Some 10,000 years ago, the Loporrits were created on a barren moon, with only Zodiark and the Watcher as company. Hydaelyn gave them their first task, to create a propulsion system capable of moving the moon to any planet. Not an easy task, but one they did complete, though it took them around 6,000 years. With the first task a success, Hydaelyn then gave them a second task, to create habitual spaces for the people of Etheirys to live in. It then took 4,000 years to create the necessary systems, though with some minor hiccups, as there was a brief period where they halted their production entirely when the Allagans sent up Bahamut and Dalamud. They had feared that someone nefarious was colluding with Zodiark and braced themselves for the worst. Hydaelyn informed them of its true purpose, and work continued on ever since. Both the propulsion system and the habitual systems were finished around 2,000 years ago, and with that, all the most important features were now fit for purpose, which was good and all, but they didn't know anything about the people of Etheirys, and they were forbidden from going down to the planet itself, afraid that a bad actor would abuse their technology for their own evil ends. So instead, they beseeched Hydaelyn to get in contact with those from Etheirys so they may collaborate and improve the living spaces here in Bestway Burrow. Eventually, she contacted people, and for a while they exchanged dialogues and technology. After 3 short years of using their technology, they were able to send letters, books, and other things to them directly. They used their knowledge to make meaningful changes to the moon, and what you see before us is because of the knowledge they had provided. And with that, the tour is ended, and somehow our fellow Scions managed to find us here in Greatest Endsvale. Urianger was accompanied by Livingway, and she came to take Growingway away for a meeting. We also divulged the details which Growingway told us to the rest of them. They can scarcely believe that they have been working on this plan for over 12,000 years. With their appointed hour fast approaching, we can understand their restlessness, but still there are problems with this place. First, there have been no signs of the final days, therefore the people cannot be persuaded to evacuate just yet, and some wouldn't even like to live here. The technology is beyond their comprehension and would cause them great discomfort. Whoever the collaborators are, they even need a way to convince the people to evacuate, or force the people to evacuate. Either way, they will be met with great resistance. When faced with annihilation, the decision to forsake all one has and knows is not easy to make. We all ponder for a moment. Preparation for the evacuation of Etheirys is indeed critical, but we are not yet willing to forsake our world and its reflections just yet. Urianger breaks the silence and apologizes that he must leave because there is another matter which needs his attention. We ask if he wants us to accompany him, and he believes it won't be necessary. We've been friends with him for so long that we've gotten used to knowing when he's operating behind our backs, though he usually tends to try and hide it a bit better than this. We know he acts with good intentions at heart, but we don't know why he insists on doing so. To that end, Thancred asks us to follow him, whilst they stay behind and ask around about the final days. We catch Urianger leaving Bestway Burrows and venturing off into Mare Lamentorum for unknown reasons.
Thine arrival is timely as ever. Thou didst chance to overhear my conversation with Livingway, I presume? 'Twas not mine intent to move in shadow. Nevertheless, I have been asked to do that and more yet again. Is it so plain that these strangers could intuit it at a glance? My capacity for silence and secrecy and duplicity? When Grahatir did contrive to deliver the first at the price of his own life, I was complicit in the scheme. A sacrifice averted for a mercy. Would that I could say the same for Minfilia. One life for one world. And by that bloody bargain brokered by my hand were the Scions robbed of a dear comrade and Flamine her beloved daughter. 2 souls whose selflessness was beyond measure, whose resolve was unshakable. They would not be moved even had I thought to protest. But protest I did not. Far from it. I pushed them forward. No effort did I make to seek out alternatives, ones that would not demand such terrible costs. That resignation weigheth heavy on my mind, as does the memory of another lost to mine inaction. Dearest Moonbringer, who did face death unflinching, that we might secure a means to bring low the Ascians. In her hour of need, I did naught. Dutiful disciple of Louisoix, ever looking to the greater good. Had I shut mine eyes and bid her live instead, mayhap she would be with us today. Selfish wants, born of everlasting regrets. Most days I put them from my mind, but could think of naught else when asked to swallow the same bitter draught. Subterfuge and sacrifice. Mayhap the right moral choice, but one I regard with great trepidation. The calamity of Amarot was a tragedy beyond reckoning, one which must never again come to pass. Thus must we struggle, haunted by ghosts of those we have lost, clinging to those we pray we can yet save. But what of those we cannot? How do we make peace with the dreadful algebra of necessity?
We repeat the words which Vritra had spoke to us. Have faith in yourself and your decisions. Take heart and protect well those you can.
Sage counsel indeed. I see. Wisdom as befits a great worm. Curious that he should think thee in need of such encouragement. Strange. Scarcely can I remember when last we spoke alone, and so candidly. I thank thee. For all my supposed skill with words, I find it difficult to express such private thoughts. As for the Loporrit's proposition, I will take time and consider how to respond. 'Twould be to our mutual benefit if we could converse more openly with our aspiring caretakers. A concern I should be glad to address on the Scion's behalf. To dispense with all pretense and bare one's heart to another is a frightening thing indeed. But we cannot move forward ere we take that bold first step. A lesson I have learned many times before. And today.
The Loporrits were trying to eavesdrop on our conversation, cursing their big ears as they were unable to catch a single word. It is of no matter though. They have some kind of plan and it will continue regardless. The reason Urianger came all the way out here is because he has a plan of his own, which may pave a path forward for us all. It has no guarantee of success, which is why he set out alone, as if it were to fail, then it would be due to his own failings. But because we stand here with a proffered hand, he cannot refuse such amity. Therefore he asks us to aid him in this endeavor. Difficult decisions are to be made in the coming days, but one thing both us and the Loporrits are in agreement of is that we desire to save the people of Aetheris. To make our resolve clear, he would offer a gift to them. To make said gift, he will use a spell taught to him by the Nummo on the abundance of Spongoi here. The spell takes considerable concentration, and eventually it is done. He has crafted ink. It isn't special in any way, but he did choose the color, which he hopes the Loporrits appreciate. Our foray into the wilderness is interrupted by Livingway. She said that Y'shtola had to speak with us right away. It is very dire, and we shouldn't keep one as prickly as her waiting. As for Urianger, they have a package which is far too heavy for the Loporrits to carry, and it needs to be delivered to the Watcher. Therefore, they need his help with that. Seems kind of strange, but we go to Y'shtola, who tells us that she said nothing of the sort. But considering we're here, there is a Loporrit named Runningway who knows about the final days. But as his name suggests, he won't stop running. We eventually get him to stop by force, but he says he doesn't know any more about the final days than any other Loporrit here. It was Growingway who told Y'shtola that he did, but when questioned, he says he can't remember who exactly it was. When we mention that we're going to go help Urianger instead, suddenly, Growing Way remembers that the information was stored in an archive. We follow him to said archive, and again the information we require is not here. The towering door is locked and requires a key. We must find a person who owns the key to open the door. At this point it has become plain to see that he's trying to waste our time here in Bestway Borough. We do not know for what reason he has decided to obfuscate our path, but we are in a hurry. Are they not as well? They are. The moon is meant to be a perfect paradise for the people of Aetheris, and now they're running out of time to make everything ready for their arrival. They had hoped that we'd see the wonders they'd have to offer, but instead we found nothing but faults. Only one of us saw potential. As he understands what's at stake, he understands what must be done. The rest must be kept locked up here instead. They have clearly misjudged us. We never decried the notion of using the moon to escape. We merely can't imagine abandoning Aetheris and her reflections to their doom. If there is any way to avert the final days, we wish to find it. We may fail, but our efforts would never be at the expense of their plans. He snaps, stating, "Why would we take that risk? There is no more room for ifs or maybes anymore. The people of Aetheris will escape here to the moon. They will be safe, and will finally get to see their happy, smiling faces. I'm sorry, but we just can't let you leave. We just can't." Suddenly, a group of Loporich trained in combat surround us and are told to restrain us. If we dally here too long, they'll overwhelm us with sheer numbers. Instead, we split up and knock out the ones that are nearby. Then we headed towards where Argus was waiting. Now we can finally see what this was all about with their leader Livingway. Urianger is seen near the Watcher's palace. He too had been tricked. There was no package which needed to be delivered to the Watcher. The reason he has been brought here is because they want him to return to Aetheris' surface and convince the rest of the people to come to the moon and escape this tragedy. To which he refuses. The Loporits are all shocked to hear this response. They thought he was the only one who could understand what must be done. What of the final days? If they don't hurry, all of Aetheris will perish. The rest of us arrive at the scene, but Urianger asks us to stay back. Their unwavering commitment to their duty is endearing. Do not worry, we bear them no grudge. How could we, now that we understand their purpose? For 12,000 years they have labored endlessly for this vessel's construction, a feat beyond anything that we could comprehend. They have spared no effort. In fact, their names are a testament to their dedication. Names are an expression of the self, a declaration of hopes and aspirations. Their use of uncomplicated nomenclature shows the clarity of their purpose. There is no doubt in our mind that their love for the people of Aetheris is boundless and pure. The Loporits agree. They were created using her love for Aetheris. All they've ever wanted to do is meet the people who she cherished so much, which is why they want his help. Help them get to the moon where they can be safe. If their constructions are found wanting, then they'll fix whatever needs to be done to make it right.
Your works want not for repair. Yet there remaineth much for you to learn of men and your own kin besides. Singing Way, thy name bespeaketh more than the simple marriage of rhythm and rhyme. The songs of Aetheris are beyond counting, and span the length and breadth of emotion. Maps are monuments to man's pioneering spirit and his devotion to charting the furthest reaches of our star. Many have devoted their lifetimes to exploratory pursuits, to venture unto the highest mountains and the deepest oceans in search of unknown frontiers. And thou, my friend, I do not think we've met.
My name is Puddingway.
Puddingway? Yes, indeed. A name of deep and abiding significance, I'm sure, but one perhaps better communicated through delicious deeds than tasteless words. A judicious application of fey magics at a later juncture may be appropriate. And living way. 'Tis no easy feat to convey the significance of thy moniker. When I was a bookish boy, a dear friend of mine was fond of peppering me with questions as I read, to my occasional annoyance. One day, I posed to her a question of mine own. What doth it mean to live? After much contemplation, she proffered this answer. The anticipation of a half-read story's conclusion. The hope today's mistake may serve as tomorrow's lesson. The wish that a new acquaintance may one day call thee friend. She believed it to be all these moments and more.
I want to understand, but...
I, too, still labor to find mine own answer. 'Twould be my pleasure to assist you and yours in embarking on a journey of self-discovery and enlightenment. For thee. Ink as blue as the waters of Aetheris. Made in haste, though I assure thee, the quality has not suffered for it. The people need not be persuaded by honeyed words. Nay, I have faith they shall do what is right in due course. Until they do, I beg your patience, friends. And with that ink, let us fill the empty pages of Living Way's compendium. An open exchange of ideas will surely afford you all a better understanding of modern man, and with it, ideas for improvements and renovations. But more importantly, it shall empower us to together find a way forward.
I hope you're right. Thank you for this lovely gift.
And there you have it. Urianger will remain behind with the Loporrits to ensure that all is in order if the time comes for evacuation. Though we are all in agreement that evacuation of the star is our last resort. To accept failure is to accept not only the demise of our star, but also Reen's, of the other reflections and the souls that call them home. Which is why we shall fight to our last breath, so that such drastic measure may prove unnecessary. With his watchful eye overseeing the Loporrits, we can have faith that not a single soul will be left behind if calamity comes. The flower given to us by Hydaelyn yet again changes colour. It is now a warm orange. The colour orange signifies optimism, confidence, enthusiasm, warmth, and agreeableness. The Watcher asks us how we came into possession of this flower. It was a gift from Hydaelyn. How very like her. Guided by its light, you may come to know her true intentions. Intentions which remain a mystery even to us. In their time, they called it Elpis. We would do well to remember its name. We should keep the flower close, for it shall be our guide. The Loporrits come to apologize for their secrecy, which in return we also apologize for not being the best of guests. Speaking of secrecy, they were about to tell us their secret collaborators, but we already know who they are. It is the Charlayan Forum. Their plans align with their anonymous patrons. Had we not peeked at certain restricted terms, we might have still been unaware of their plans. But we'll continue this discussion back on the surface of Aetheris. We have kept Alphino and the others waiting all too long.